Julius Caesar. I mean, the name itself just echoes through history, right? It's all about power, ambition, and a moment that changed, well, pretty much everything. But you can't tell the story of his incredible rise without also telling the story of his violent, shocking fall.
So let's just get right to it, because this is the central mystery. At the absolute height of his power, Caesar wasn't taken out by some foreign enemy on a battlefield. No, he was killed by his own allies, men he considered friends. Why would they do it?
The scene itself, it's pure drama. It's March 15th, 44 BC. He's at a Senate meeting, and suddenly, a group of senators surrounds him. They pull out daggers and stab him 23 times. And the final brutal irony? He collapses and dies right at the foot of a statue of his greatest rival, Pompey the Great.
So what on earth drove them to this? This is where it gets complicated. You see, for the killers, this was an act of tyrannicide. They believed they were killing a tyrant to save the Republic. But for everyone who loves Caesar, this was nothing short of treason, the ultimate betrayal.
And you can see these two completely opposite views perfectly captured right here, on their money. On one side, you've got a coin Caesar had made, calling himself Dict Perpetuo, dictator for life. On the other side, a coin the assassins made after they killed him. It's got two daggers, a symbol of freedom, and the date, the Ides of March. It's literally a celebration of the murder. So how did one man become both a symbol of ultimate power and a threat so big he had to be destroyed?
To answer that, you really have to go back. We need to look at the path he took, because that's what made him a hero to so many, and an absolute monster to others.
Caesar's career was basically a masterclass in climbing the political ladder in Rome. He started out managing finances, then gets elected Pontifex Maximus, which is the chief priest of Rome, a huge deal, and then finally hits the top job, consul. But it was his next move as a governor out in Gaul that really changed the game.
Now, he didn't do it all by himself, not at first anyway. Back in 60 BC, he teamed up with two other Roman heavyweights, Crassus, who was ridiculously rich, and Pompey, the most famous general of the day. They formed this informal power trio, the First Triumvirate, and together they basically ran Rome, sidestepping the Senate whenever they wanted.
With that political muscle behind him, Caesar launches the Gallic Wars, and this was his masterstroke. For 8 years, he conquered a massive amount of territory, got unbelievably wealthy, and most importantly, he built a veteran army that was completely, fanatically loyal to him, not to the politicians back in Rome. He had this incredible knack for self-promotion. After one of his quick victories, he sent back this message: Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. It just perfectly captures his whole style: fast, decisive, and always winning. He was becoming a living legend.
But here's the thing about legends. They can be pretty threatening to the people in charge. Back in Rome, his old alliance had fallen apart. Crassus was dead, and Pompey was now working with the Senate. They saw Caesar's growing power as a direct threat, and they decided to take him down a peg.
So they gave him an ultimatum, a choice with no good options. They said, disband your army, give up your power, and come back to Rome as a regular citizen. Caesar knew exactly what that meant. His enemies would put him on trial, and his career would be over. It was a political death sentence.
So, in January 49 BC, he made his choice. He led one of his legions across the Rubicon River, which was the legal border of Italy. To do that with an army was an act of treason. It was a declaration of war. As he crossed, he supposedly said, Elea iacta est. The die is cast. Basically, there's no turning back now.
And just like that, civil war exploded. Caesar, of course, spun it as him defending the rights of the people against a corrupt elite. Pompey and the Senate, on the other hand, they argued they were the ones fighting to save the Republic from a man who wanted to be king.
Well, Caesar won. He chased Pompey across the world and crushed the last of the Senate's armies. When he came back to Rome this time, he wasn't just another general. He was the undisputed master of the entire Roman world.
And he immediately started acting like it. He unleashed this huge wave of reforms. He created the Julian calendar, which, with a few tweaks, is the one we still use. He gave land to his soldiers. He packed the Senate with hundreds of his own supporters. He gave citizenship to more people in the provinces. Every single one of these moves was a power play, designed to reward his friends and cement his control. He was literally rebuilding the state around himself.
But this was the breaking point.
You see, in Rome, a dictator was a temporary emergency position. You got it for 6 months to solve a crisis, and then you gave it back. But in February of 44 BC, Caesar accepted the title Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. This broke every tradition. For many senators, this was the final, undeniable proof. He was never going to give up power. He was a king in everything but name.
The conspiracy came together almost overnight after that, and it all ended on the Ides of March. But what happened next? Well, that's probably the biggest irony in this whole story.
The assassins called themselves the Liberators. They honestly thought that by killing one man, they could bring the old republic back to life. They were so wrong. All his murder did was throw Rome back into total chaos. It started another, even bloodier civil war that lasted for 13 years and completely destroyed what was left of the republic.
So who finally won? Caesar's heir. In his will, Caesar pulled off one last brilliant move. He adopted his teenage great-nephew, a kid named Octavian, making him his official son. After all the fighting was over, it was this kid, Octavian, who came out on top. He took a new name, Augustus, and he became the very thing the assassins killed Caesar to prevent, the first official Roman emperor.
Think about this. Caesar's impact was so enormous that his family name, Caesar, stopped being just a name. It became a title. It became the word for emperor. For almost 2,000 years, you had rulers in Germany calling themselves Kaiser and in Russia calling themselves Tsar, and both of those words are just their way of saying Caesar.
Which brings us all the way back to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Was Julius Caesar a savior who put an end to the chaos of a broken republic and laid the groundwork for a stable Roman Empire? Or was he just a power-hungry tyrant whose ambition destroyed centuries of Roman freedom? It's a debate that's as famous and as lasting as his name.